on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day. I know it seems like everything is just falling apart. It seems like everything is bleak, but there's actually a lot of great information that's coming out right now. This is blowing open as it's being censored even further. It's interesting to see how this plays out. There's some major question marks. There's places where I'm expecting blockages to really kick in, and I'm not sure what the step around that is. But there is a lot of movement that is currently happening that, one, leads me to see there's a lot of hope. We've got a lot of evidence that is starting to be compiled that suggests all sorts of strange anomalies that have occurred during this election cycle. And we've got some news that even suggests that some of these people, some of these AGs, may very well be trying to cover up some of their misdeeds as well, trying to file cease and desist orders against certain people that are running stories that are factual. So a lot of things are playing out, and I've got some amazing video from Giuliani and McEnany that's not being played on the news because they keep turning away and cutting away every time this stuff comes out. Now, Twitter, just to get going, has censored 12 Trump posts in one day. I'm assuming this was today or yesterday, but either or. There's a whole bunch of Trump posts that have been blocked. Now, these are on like 3 different days, but I think the 11th is where they saw a whole bunch. But again, a number of places where Twitter is literally censoring the President of the United States just for agreeing with the information that is being presented and being investigated at this time. And if Trump talks about any of that stuff, they censor him. This is a coup. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Literally, our government there's an attempt to take over our government. I don't believe it's going to go well, but there is a very serious effort underway. Now, of all the censorships that have happened, Twitter's actually managed to censor Trump's and his campaign 111 times. They've censored Biden 0, mind you. Censored pretty much and nobody on the other side at all, which, again, this is a question all of us need to ask. Sure, you may hate Trump. That's very possible. But to assume that Biden and everyone on the left never does anything worthy of censorship and only people on the right do things worthy of censorship, that just kind of goes to show how lopsided things are. So again, one huge thing to consider, honestly, for all of you guys right now, one huge thing to consider is what this individual is going to be talking about with Mary Bartiromo over the weekend. And that is move over to Parler. Parler is going to be where everybody's going to go after they leave Twitter. And this is the only way we can really try to attack or fight back against Dorsey and all of his misdeeds. So this would be one of the recommendations I would give. Let's give a quick little hear or listen to what's going on here.
All right, making a buzz this morning. Apple's #1 app store download is Parler. The Twitter competitor topped the App Store for the first time over the weekend. After the media called the election for Joe Biden, it remains the #1 free app on both Google and Apple's App Store. I'm not surprised by this. Dagan McDowell, you know that earlier in the week and last week, I made a statement and I said I will no longer accept the censorship that is happening on Twitter, and I will be leaving soon and going to Parler. And that is exactly what I have been doing. Joining us right now is the founder of Parler, John Mates. John, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on being the #1 downloadable app on the Apple Store.
Now, again, this whole interview is not necessarily worthy of watching. I mean, it's decent, but it's not that great. Ultimately, long story short, this guy's creating a platform that a lot of people can move to. They're not about censorship, and he has noticed like a 40 times increase in the amount of volume they're having. Now, right now, it's probably a bit on the conservative side, which, it's sort of an echo chamber. But trust me, when conservatives go over to Parler, the other side will come because they're not going to have anyone else to fight with. And people on the left just can't live a happy life unless they're angry and mad about something. It's a weird catch-22 that they live in. I don't understand it myself. I like being happy. I don't like being around negative people. It's just not fun for me. But they love it. That being said, Maria Bartolomo, I guess anytime she's going to be doing any opinion pieces, for those of you that may follow her on Twitter, she will no longer be posting that on Twitter. She's still going to post stuff about her show and guests and all that because, again, Twitter's still got the audience. But this is the place and time where a lot of us need to consider getting off of some of these sources. Now, many people out there are like, no, Twitter should just be an open process. You know what? I think enough information's come out and enough stuff has happened to assume this isn't going to get remedied anytime soon. Now, maybe once everything's said and done, maybe we go back to Twitter. But really right now is the time for all of us to literally be creating accounts on these other sites, creating accounts on these other applications, and making sure maybe even occasionally we're going to some of these other applications to watch videos too. Maybe even just one or two, and then hop back into YouTube world if you want. But now is a great time to start to explore some of these other avenues because the tech censorship is hardcore happening right now. Now, big news, we talked about it yesterday, but Mike Adams, who, again, very conspiratorial, and I do not agree with his assessment, at least as of yet. I think this is on the table, seeing what happens with all these legal things. So my understanding of what's going on and what Mike Adams is suggesting in this article is basically if the legal stuff fails or if we get more censorship or more blockages outside of what we're already experiencing, like I don't know how much worse it can get, we'll find out. But what he's saying, I think, would lead to this if all else has failed. So what he's talking about, one, he fired Secretary of State Mark Esper. He replaced him with a guy that's an intelligence or a counterintelligence individual. Obviously, that's what we're dealing with right now is an intelligence coup. A lot of people suggest the CIA is behind it. There was software. We're going to talk about that coming up that was created with Hillary Clinton's help and her money and probably Soros and other people, but also the CIA was a part of this. Dominion is the name of that software. Major news coming up around that as well shortly, right here. But understand that he has replaced Mark Esper, who probably was not a white hat, and replaced him with someone that is very skilled at what we are currently dealing with. Now, maybe Mark just needed to go to get out of the way because we need somebody that's better at what we're fighting right now. I don't know. Trump doesn't make really mistakes. He might say things that maybe are taken wrong and perceived incorrectly. That happens frequently. But he himself is a brilliant man that has made some really smart decisions, and I just do not believe that he didn't see this coming. I'm 100% sure Trump and everybody, his administration, saw what's happening right now. They saw it coming from a mile away, from 100 miles away. There was a big dust cloud coming, and they saw it. So they prepared. And there's a lot of things that are definitely happening. Now, the two options that Mike Adams talks about is one, invoking of the Insurrection Act and declare the Democrats' blatant vote rigging and outrageous censorship to be a rebellion against the United States of America. Now, if he did that, that would technically give the military, which is not going to be accepted by half of the population. This is why I don't believe this is going to happen, but it could. But anyways, that being said, it would basically say, all right, you are now able to go into these tech companies, basically take over those, and you are able to essentially cease and desist or force people to stop doing what they're doing using this Insurrection Act, basically saying that these companies are trying to take down the United States of America, which I think is definitely an argument to be made. Option 2 is to invoke Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, which calls for Trump to strip Electoral College votes from all states engaged in acts of rebellion against the United States. Now, again, Mike Adams, I like the guy a lot, but he is always just crazy town, and that's where he lives. And a lot of the times, there's lots of truth within crazy town. That's how it gets over there. But I don't think this is going to flow, mainly because half the country is not going to go along with this. This is a bad way to do it. It could happen. But I also think there's all the legal stuff that is currently playing out. And once the truth starts to be laid out in front of people and they're able to get it in the news, I'm not sure how they're going to work around that either. I'm not sure which network is going to finally go, all right, we'll actually report the truth. You know, watch it be CNN. They've been tripping me out lately where they're actually covering some stuff almost fairly. Very strange, just tripping me out. Anyway, other positive news. We'll see, again, how things play out. Other positive news, Sullivan, he was the senator out there in Alaska. He apparently won re-election. This would finally put the Republicans to 50 senators. Now, I personally am wondering what happens after all the recounts. I think this number should go back up to 52 at least. And probably, I would be shocked if we don't at least pick up one seat. in the Senate. Would be very shocked. Also, I'm curious to see if the House, when we start doing some recounts, if that doesn't even get a little better for the Republicans. So some good news there. And of course, Alaska's already been given to Trump, big whopping 3 electoral votes, which is cool. Thank you, Alaska. Polar bears have a voice. It's nice to know, right? Now, this is pretty huge. Kayleigh McEnany, 1, is awesome. 2, I did not know this. She's from Fox. Everyone probably knew that. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I didn't. I didn't realize she used to work at Fox News. So now a lot of things are starting to make even more sense to me. We've got him. We've got Crowder that used to work for Fox as well. We've got these people that have some knowledge into the way things have been done in the past. Now, Crowder intentionally doesn't talk a lot about it. Kayleigh McEnany doesn't really mention where she comes from. But knowing all of this and knowing the way Fox is turned away, we had Cavuto the other day that literally said, well, she's saying all this stuff. No, I don't know if there's any proof. So she's making crazy allegations. I can't possibly let her say stuff like that. Again, censorship. And maybe she was following up with examples like she does here. Check it out.
All right, Kayleigh, let's start with you. Explain what those percentages mean and explain you're in the process of getting these affidavits. You have, for example, you brought a pile of them with you tonight.
That's right. I did, Sean. We keep hearing the drumbeat of where is the evidence? Right here, Sean. 234 pages of sworn affidavits. These are real people, real allegation, signed with notaries who are alleging the following, among other contentions. They are alleging, this is one county, Wayne County, Michigan. They are saying that there was a batch of ballots where 60% had the same signature. They are saying that 35 ballots had no voter record, but they were counted anyway, that 50 ballots were run multiple times through a tabulation machine, that one woman said her son was deceased, but nevertheless somehow voted. These are one of many, many allegations in one county, in a county no less, where our poll watchers were in many cases threatened with racial harassment. They were pushed out of the way, and Democrat challengers were handing out documents how to distract GOP challengers. These are real, and anyone who cares about transparency and the integrity of the system should want this to pursue to the discovery phase.
And that's true. I mean, that's it. Bottom line. Anybody on the left who says, hey, this is crap, there's no way there's any sort of meddling has happened in the election. One, that's really kind of an assumption to make. And I get wanting your side to win. And they always say, if the shoe was on the other foot, look, the shoe has been on the other foot. Trump's been accused of everything under the sun. And a lot of us have basically said, look, if there's truth to this, then let's bust him. But there wasn't. It was a bunch of people saying a bunch of stuff. Now, when the shoe is on the other foot, meaning now the left, the Democrats, have to put this shoe on, they're like, no, it's unfair. You're making stuff up. Well, she has 234 pages of actual notarized allegations from people that have actually seen it. This is huge. This is beyond huge. So again, things are warming up. Georgia's Secretary of State orders hand recounts and audits of all counties. Georgia was a big one of the states that's had a lot of questions. Well, Secretary of State's ordered all ballots to be recounted. That's going to make for an interesting afternoon, if you will, in Georgia. Probably longer than an afternoon, but still. That's a big step. Again, all these legal things had to play out. They had to finish counting first, then they could start to go after it. Another thing that's very interesting. Election data has been analyzed. It's producing, first off, lots of people are digging into this data. People that are quarterback couches, people that maybe are data analysts as a part-time thing, and people that are full-time into looking at this kind of data. A lot of people are looking at this information. And what this individual's done here, this is PETA something or other, PETA inspector, petty inspector, and centipede. I don't know who the hell he is, but whatever. Apparently, he's produced a list detailing over 500,000 votes that he shows switched from Trump to Biden via voting machine software theft with heavy fraud focusing on swing states. Now, this is what a lot of people have been suspecting about all this. What I kind of wanted to point out was just a quick visual of some of this. Now, granted, this isn't pretty and fluffy, but apparently a thedonald.win/u/petty inspector has put together this site so people could share stuff they're finding. So we've got huge evidence, glitches all over the company, happening, calling every petty to bump this now, calling every, again, there's just glitches all over. There is a bunch of stories in here. This is pretty decent. Not bad. So again, people are noticing what's up. People are paying attention to what's up. There's locations where they can share their story, and believe me, people are reaching out to people when they're finding out. This is moving forward. As much as it seems like it's falling apart, so says the media, the reality of it is very, very different. It's why I still think we're in the 10 days of darkness until Friday. That's truly why. Now, I just recently thought this the other day, too. So if the election was on Tuesday, Wednesday was the 4th, if we're just doing 10 business days, which would be weird, that would actually be, what, 3 is a Friday, and 5 is 8. That pushes it out to Tuesday the 17th, which I had heard that there's supposedly going to be a big announcement on Monday. But that being said, I still think Friday the 13th is the 10th day from the day after the election. From that Wednesday, if you count Wednesday, Thursday on, Friday the 13th is the 10th day. Kind of an interesting coincidence. Also, if you think about it, no one's really seen much of Biden lately, or not Biden, but Pence. He seems to be not missing in action, but probably holed up somewhere. Also, haven't seen a lot of public engagements with Trump. Now, I haven't been watching a lot of TV, so maybe I'm just missing it. That's very possible. But the other side of it, I think, is there's probably some very serious allegations of threat against the president right now. So I would assume right now we are being exceptionally cautious as far as where we pop our heads out and, those kinds of things. So again, a lot of protection is happening. I'm sure he's got the Marines around him. We had talked about this numerous times in the past, how the Marines would be the key. And so the Marines are around him. They're also who fly Marine One, the helicopter. That's controlled by the Marines as well. So there's a lot of things that are working in our favor that people don't talk about. Another example, Rudy Giuliani has been all over the place, and he has been the face for the president. Again, to remind people, Rudy Giuliani, not just being mayor of New York during 9/11, which is pretty cool, and he was a very loved mayor at the time, he also, from his legal career, helped take down some of the mafia. This guy's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with some of the most dangerous, unscrupulous characters in the world. He has done it in the past. He's doing it again. And don't think for 1 second he wasn't getting threats back then. And don't think for 1 second he's not getting threats right now. So again, a lot of things are happening. But on top of that, Rudy Giuliani's got some very, very cool news for us around this Dominion. He's talking about whistleblowers coming forward to talk about what they know about this Dominion software. This Dominion software is possibly supposed to be the one that's related to the CIA. I don't know for sure, but that's the suspicion. And that it was also the company that was owned by Pelosi partially, and I think the Clinton Foundation had some money in on this. Probably, Podesta or some of these guys, right? Some of these people that we just can't stand, right? So a lot of evil money, if you will, has been pumped into this. Let's see what the interview is all about. It's pretty cool. Steve Bannon talking with Rudy Giuliani about a minute plus here.
Our next guest is going to be Dave Coleman from, I think, the Great Lakes. He's one of these public interest research institutions. This lawsuit is a combination of what Thor was working on in Coleman. Is that correct, in Michigan?
Correct. And they both have superior information. Thor has the part of it with the government insiders who basically are turning, let's call it state's evidence. They are Democrats who are testifying against the Democratic effort because they were so disgusted. That's basically Thor's people. Coleman has the community people, and he's got the Dominion people. And they were the ones who were the actual, not the poll watchers, the observers, who were excluded, who were lied to, but two of whom stayed behind after all the Republicans had been left out. And they're the ones who got the evidence on the 100,000 votes coming in. And they have some photographs also. You put those two together, and you've got some very, very powerful evidence that room at the Cobb Center, I think it was a complete, let's make up the votes room. How much do we have to make up, and let's get there.
Now, again, this is allegations. I'm not saying that we can verify any of this is true yet. But what I am saying is this stuff is going to go before judges. Judges will be deciding whether this is legitimate or not. Now, if you listen to the media, all of these stories, 100% of all these stories are false. 100%. That's not true. That's actually very false. I don't know how many of them are true. I doubt 100% of them are true, right? I'm sure there's plenty of crap stories in there of people saying they've rigged ballots when in reality, no, didn't really happen. What I will also say is that there are a bunch of these stories that I'm betting are true. Again, don't know for sure. This is what the legal people are supposed to be, and that's what Rudy Giuliani is playing a huge part. So they got this Thor, that's one side of this, and these are basically people that are unhappy Democrats that were involved in some suspicious stuff that are turning states' evidence. They are turning over their people. Again, there's some people that have consciences on the left. And these are the people that weren't ready for this entire takeover. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't realize this is what's happening. No, I may not like Donald Trump, but I definitely like freedom. I definitely love the United States of America, and I see what is happening before my eyes. And then, of course, he's got the other side of it, which is that Dominion and all of that. And these people actually were eyewitnesses to possibly some interesting behaviors. We'll see how that plays. And also the Dominion thing is going to be huge. I still believe, and I don't know, again, there was a skiff that was happening on Election Day. The CIA supposedly, I don't know, again, was playing with this software. And any place where it was installed, they already knew about that. They've been monitoring all this stuff. And then they've also been able to monitor real time the changes. Now, again, if there has been blockchain technology used on any of this voting stuff like we've been told, then it's going to be really hard because you cannot change or delete the original record. You can only modify, and it creates a new record. It's kind of a way of knowing if you've made changes, right? It's a way of being able to tell any changes I've made. Rather than deleting or overwriting what you originally had, you can see all versions, if you will, of the data, and then you know the most current version is the true one, or in this case, quite possibly, the untrue one. That being said, there's a lot of digital footprints that I am sure are being placed all over the place. They're not talking about them specifically for a number of reasons. One, they don't just want common people to know how easy it is or not easy it is to fake a ballot or to fake a vote or any of that stuff. So they're not giving away their secrets. Fact is, some technology was pushed. People weren't really told about it. Ballots were printed potentially with a watermark that may be invisible to the normal color scheme, to the naked eye. It may either show up in infrared or it may show up under ultraviolet. Either one of those causes this watermark to pop out. And it may be a very specific frequency that shows the watermark as well, which, again, that's part of the technology. It's hard to fake something if you don't know it's there. If you don't know how to find it, it's really hard to fake it. Now, if you can find it, it's not too hard to fake. It's not terribly difficult to come up with an ink that only shows up under certain wavelengths, right? Like, I don't want to get off on the technical side of it too much. Bottom line is, there's a lot of information to suggest that the deep state is possibly going to get caught. I say possibly only in that I will believe it when I see it. I don't count my chickens before the eggs are hatched. So, again, we've got a lot of eggs sitting in a bunch of places. I'm curious to see if they hatch too. I don't believe that Trump didn't see this coming. I am about as sure as I can be that he knows this is coming and he realizes what he's fighting against. And I think probably very prepared. Very prepared. Again, we'll see how it plays out. Don't believe anything until you see it. Trust me. Even when it comes to the results, it needs to be from something other than the media, because the media is not allowed to call the results, even though they seem to have a hard time with that. So captured in real time, just a couple more examples. Virginia at 5:12 a.m., where they apparently took 373,000 votes off the state totals. So you can see right here, 357, and then it dropped down to 319. A huge jump, and this was 5 minutes later. You got a time date stamp over here. So 5 minutes later, they lost a crap ton of votes. They did the math for me, thank God. 373,000 votes in 5 minutes just disappeared. Now, what might be interesting is they seem to have somewhat maybe come back right after, or at least some of them, but it makes you wonder, did they change? I don't know, but they're going to look into this stuff. These, quote, software glitches, I think, are going to be some of the easiest records to find. And there seems to be so many stories because, again, a lot of people were watching the news live and wondering, whoa, why did the numbers just change crazy like that? I just shared a CNN story yesterday where someone was showing on the screen how it literally changed 20,000 votes up for Biden, down for Trump, like that. That doesn't happen. That's a 40,000 point swing. That's gnarly, right? That makes a huge difference. So every one of these glitches, finger quotes, every single one of those glitches is an enormous problem because, again, it's a double swing. You go up the one direction and down the other. It's very, very negative. So, again, I think the glitches are the ones that they're totally going to find. Another glitch, Trump loses 32,615 votes in Pennsylvania in 1 hour, apparently. This didn't spark any concern amongst a lot of people, it seems. Now, Pennsylvania is another one of the big ones right now that looks to be, like, one, legally they're having a heck of a time because Pennsylvania, at least certain people within the state authority, I don't know who that would be, but there seems to be a very strong push to give that state to Biden no matter what, even though it looks like, potentially, that Trump might have very well won that state big time. So we'll see again how that plays out. This is not a secret to anybody. This is known. They just have to go through the recount process or whatever the judges decide. We need to go through these processes. Another thing that also is happening right now, Republicans are going to begin filing FCC complaints about networks who falsely claim Joe Biden is the president-elect. When I've spoken before, and kind of just a quick side note here, but when we've talked before about how the change has happened, there is a shift in the world. The world will never be the same again after this election. One, we're going to see all the sliminess being called out. So a lot of slimy people are either A, going to be rounded up and sent down to Guantanamo because of treason, B, might just disappear happily from the limelight and basically retire early, possibly, or who knows? But there is a true effort to actually bring these people to justice and show the United States and the American people what's going on. The news media networks, I don't think will survive this. I don't know who's actually ever going to trust any media ever again. At least anybody that's on the, quote, right, center right, anyone that doesn't hate Donald Trump, anyone that doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome will likely never trust the media again, ever. So hopefully it'll be the job of a lot of independent media people, maybe such as myself and others like me, that are going to try our best to bring you the news as best we can, hopefully somewhat of a unbiased, even though it's really hard. I mean, you either hate Trump or you don't. I mean, so either way you're biased, I guess. But I really do see two paths. One's more of a freedom path, and one's more of a dark, horrible cloud of structure of restricting any movement or restricting any voice, restricting our amendments, our laws, restricting our rights. One's very restrictive. One seems very promoting of positive, let's move forward, let's be friends, kumbaya, let's build a better world together, rather than let's have a dark winter together. Let's enjoy a good hearty lockdown together. It's sort of like the other side. So again, FCC complaints about how, and you're not allowed to do this when you're in the media, you're not allowed to call elections. That's against the law. It's against the FCC. Now, is the FCC a white hat or a black hat right now? Don't know. But I'm sure that will come into play, and if they have to, they'll put somebody probably in the FCC who will help make these decisions. And that also might likely end up in the Supreme Court, which again, we've got 6 people there that are constitutionalists and 3 that aren't. So we might see a lot of 6-3 votes and 5-4 votes because Roberts is probably going to be one of the people that will shift around a little bit. He's a little sneaky that way. Now, this was that story I was talking about, how the Michigan AG, Dana Nessel, is sending a cease and desist order to journalists demanding he erase his hashtag Detroit Leaks video showing voter fraud training or face criminal prosecution. That's a threat. That's a threat to the independent media. That's a threat to the media. The media has a First Amendment right, don't they? We have a First Amendment right to talk about these things. We have a First Amendment right to have a free press. Yet here she is saying, you take down your article that shows exactly what happened. That's a video of people behaving a specific way. You take down that proof or else we'll come after you. That kind of reeks of all sorts of bad stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. Michigan, another heavily contested state that very likely will go towards Trump. Very likely. And we'll see how this all plays out again. Now, finally, this is something that Mike Adams, again, but I actually kind of jumped on board with this one a little bit. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. I'm not saying this is one way or the other. This is just more curious. What do you think's going to happen? I'm kind of curious. Leave comments below. If you think we're going to get a revote, do you think we're going to get a recount? Do you think we actually get to just totally redo the entire election? Are they maybe going to do that in just specific locations? I'm curious what you guys think. Share with each other what you think, because this might very well be one of the more important aspects that we come across. Is there so much removal of the outer envelopes, if you will, to where they can't figure out if the ballots are accurate or not? Is that going to be a problem? It might. But there's also a lot of other data points that don't seem correct either. So again, there's a lot of questions around how this played out. As far as the live vote, I'm reasonably sure they're going to be able to rebuild those votes back to what happened initially. But I'm not 100% sure how this Dominion software works. And if truly, by the way, FYI, if the Dominion software is capable of altering a blockchain record, if it is capable of doing that, that should scare the crap out of all of you, because again, blockchain is what things like Bitcoin use. That's how they guarantee no one steals your money. And if the CIA is able to mess with blockchain, which wouldn't surprise me to be honest with you, if that's true, your Bitcoin wallet is not safe. Something to keep in mind. Again, blockchain is supposed to be pretty secure. It's supposed to be really hard, if not impossible, to break. I don't know. This is something we're also going to find out. So again, a lot of information is bubbling up to the surface, but things are happening on a daily basis. The news media wants to make it look like this is over and done. Now they're talking about how come the Trump administration isn't allowing the transition team to get moving along. Well, maybe because the election hasn't been called yet. Sorry, guys, we got to cover that part before you get to transition into a job you probably aren't going to get. So, yeah, we'll wait on that until a little later. Also, you know they would have used that to try to do some other shenanigans anyway. So, again, we have a lot going on, and things are unfolding faster than most of us can even handle. This is incredible times. This is the changing of the world, and likely the changing of the guard. For those of you that have been awake a while, like myself, this is something that many of us have been waiting for, and albeit maybe a little hesitant to believe that it's finally here. But man, it sure seems like it is. We are at that point in history where the world changes, and we change onto one path or we change onto the other. Now, to my understanding, the path has already been chosen, and we are experiencing it, and the only thing the left or the deep state or the dark could ever do was slow down the process, but they could never remove us from the timeline that we're on. We'll see again how much truth there is to that. I actually think there's a lot to it. So that's why a lot of the times they say nothing can stop this, and enjoy the show. The decisions have already been made. We're actually just experiencing it right now. And that's kind of at the best guess I can give you for how space-time and all that nonsense is going to work out, where if there is some truth to this whole timeline thing. Anyway, crazy talk, I know, but that's one of the things I like to talk about on The Fringe. That's how it works. So let's try to keep good with each other. Let's remember that a lot's happening. And let's try to have our patience when we are talking to people on the left. I've got a possible discussion coming up this coming weekend, and just trying different approaches. The left is really hard to talk to right now, and I don't really want to, I'll be honest. I don't know if we should. People that are progressive left, very difficult. People center left or in the general middle, I've been having a lot of very successful conversations with those individuals. But people that are progressive, I found it to be an absolute waste of time to have any discussion with them at all. And I think that's just one of those things where the cards need to fall where they may, and then we just, or we need to play the hand we're dealt, whatever. I don't know what's a good analogy. But I think we're going to live through that experience, and we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully we can all at some point shake hands, but there is a divide. There is a growing risk of a civil war, and frankly, I kind of think it's sort of already started, but we'll see, again, how this all plays out, and just hoping and wishing for the best. Keep everyone in your prayers. Certainly keep Donald Trump, his family, Mike Pence and his family. Keep them in your prayers. I think right now that's one thing that they can use a lot more of, is keep them surrounded in the Christ white light. Keep them safe. And we'll just do our parts as we can individually. Each one of us has our own individual part of this that we play. And we need to make sure we're doing our part as best we can, whatever that might be. Whatever your thing is. Maybe it's just talking to a couple people. Maybe it's creating a channel. Maybe it's tweeting and twitting and all the fun stuff that we do. Maybe it's actually finally creating an account over on this this other Parler or whatever the hell it's called. Like, whatever it is. I don't do Twitter either, so I'm not going to go over to Parler. I hate that crap. I just don't like it. It's whatever. It's not my mojo. I know it's what everyone loves, and who knows? Maybe one day I'll get over there, but I'd rather make a video, and I'd really not end all this little like 155 word characters or less kind of communication. Whatever. My brother sends me cool stuff. I love it. Twitter's got all sorts of interesting information. Parler will be the same. But whatever your way to help is, let's think about doing that. This is a key time in the history of this country. This is a key time in the history of this world. We need to be united. It's super important. Where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.